That looked like a hostage video, didn't it?
It looked like
Jason Kidd was sitting there. I guess Nico was still on the scene.
Yeah.
And Kidd sitting there next to him, and they're in the aftermath, like the day after they traded Luka Doncic, and he literally looked like they're the old reveal that we talk about with Hank Aaron, talking about the Barry Bonds breaking his record, where they pull back and there are two guys with ski masks on and machine guns pointed at his head. As he says, "Well, yeah, I also saw this as a good move."
He's making no facial expressions.
Take a guy out of the lineup who's averaging 40 points a game.
Just went to the
and
finals.
throws in the other two stats for a triple-double as a matter of routine, even though he doesn't look like his vertical leap is more than a half inch. He's still grabbing 12 rebounds a game. How the hell is he doing that? He dishes off 12 assists and doesn't miss in the clutch. Sure, we're getting rid of that guy.
He's like, we just play with the guys we have. He looks scared.
That was one of the all-time phony press conferences. You know how we love it. But, I mean, he looked stunned. He looked like he was on massive amounts of sedatives to sit down there and not be enraged the entire time.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, we got Mike Lubitz. Later on, we'll go old school with Tony Segreto, and that's brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants. So we have that to look forward to around 8:30 this morning. That search, that Knicks coaching search, they're getting shut down by a bunch of people so far. Excuse me. They trying to get Chris Finch. We're talking to Chris Finch, and T-Wolves told him, go bleep yourself. And Udoka with the Houston Rockets now, supposedly they asked for permission to speak to him, and the Rockets said, stick it where the sun don't shine. So a wide-ranging search that supposedly had some mutual interest between the Knicks and Jason Kidd to replace Tom Thibodeau, the man who was driving his starters right into their grave. And did take the team to the Eastern Conference Finals, which, if you really look at it, I mean, could they have beaten Indiana? Sure, they could have beaten Indiana, but they didn't. So I don't know. Did they go as far as they possibly could have this year? Wasn't really a terrible accomplishment, especially since the questions started to surface about Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know that they started to surface. They've always been there about Karl Anthony Towns, but you thought maybe with this move to the Knicks, he would find that inner fire, that burning desire to win that would keep him motivated all throughout a ball game. And yet, supposedly, there were aspersions being cast his way by teammates who remained anonymous, saying, the guy don't really try that hard, sometimes on defense. So, and maybe has too much of a desire to settle for 30-foot shots as opposed to going inside and banging around, that was part of the problem for the Knicks, and that was one of the reasons they didn't make it all the way to the NBA Finals, which are going on in anonymity so far. What, we have Game 3 tonight? Doesn't it seem like it was a year ago they played Game 2?
Yep.
And that you don't hear a whole lot of conversation about. That the Panther-Edmonton series, whether you were interested in either team because of proximity geographically, or you happen to be a fan of the team, maybe you lived in. Did we know of anyone who lived in Edmonton? And I would imagine it would be common to leave, unless you just didn't know any better. Is that possible, Lubie? I don't mean to condemn people from Western Canada, but and maybe it's a wonderful lifestyle. Maybe we're missing out, Lubie. What do you think?
No.
You think in that final moment before you meet your maker, you'll be thinking to yourself, damn, I wish I'd given Edmonton a shot. Not in the series, but as a place to live.
No, I'm good.
No regrets there, huh? All right.
No.
All right, but anyway, yeah, the baskets continues tonight. The Knicks story has been a little bit of a saga there, but I don't know. How do you see that ending up? Well, what do you think is ultimately going to happen? They supposedly were talking to Jay Wright, Danny Hurley. That didn't go very far, and neither of those. Wright said he's happy being retired, didn't want the job. Danny Hurley, I don't know, was the wife screaming in the background as they were interviewing him and asking him if he was interested in the Knicks job? And she's saying, "No, you're
not." No.
Seems like a nice person, Hurley's wife. Seems like she would be easier to get along with than Danny Hurley would be. He's one of these guys, a little tightly wound, would you say? And besides being a little tightly wound, he also appears to be a little bit bizarre in
Yes.
certain areas of life. Going around with the incense and all of this stuff and all the crazy stuff, ritualistic type of stuff that he does. I don't know. Does it scare you when somebody is ritualistic about things? I'm a little bit superstitious. How about you, Louis? I always have to walk on
Sports.
the same path. When I'm doing my walk of life, I got to touch certain spots, that sort of thing. I don't know. Do you follow that? I guess it wouldn't change anything if I didn't. I know
No,
that.
I'm realistic to know that it doesn't do anything, but you get in habits, especially around sports, where I'm sort of a lunatic, 100%. I don't know what it is in the sports fan that, like, if I'm in a certain spot and they're playing well, I'm weird
Oh, you
about
don't move?
moving.
Wow.
It's not for entirety of games or anything like that, but I'll get in little weird, quirky zones, especially if it's like a big game, like the finals or something. But yes, degenerates are all in some form. I've learned a little superstitious.
Yes, you have idiosyncratic behaviors that you seem to follow when you go. I used to talk about, and I really like this guy. He was known as Wheelchair John. Was in a wheelchair when we see him at the track, and some people had great luck with this guy. But if he came, he was a big fan, super nice about everything. Always asking me when I'm going to be on again, this, that, the other thing. That he enjoyed my show that day. But if for some reason I made physical contact with him, I had to leave the track immediately, tear up all of the tickets I had in my pocket because I was never going to hit another race. So I felt badly about it because I wanted to make contact, whatever we could do, a fist bump or whatever, and I realized that if I touched the guy, I was dead meat. So I felt very awkward about that. But that was a superstition that I decided was more significant than the idea of just being a normal person and being friendly. Anyway, a bunch of stuff happening in the sporting world, not the least of which is this, Louis. And far be it from me to want to start the day out talking about the U.S. men's national soccer team, Louis.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm afraid we're about to become an embarrassment. That's the problem there. About to become an embarrassment. They play a game, and I don't really follow this closely. I just happen to see this in a headline, so I am talking out of my ass here to a large degree. But looking at what's happening now, we are hosting, are we not? Is that next year, 2026 World Cup?
It's Mexico, America, and Canada. North America as a whole is hosting the World Cup.
Okay, so we will have games that are of significance that are contributing factors into who wins the World Cup.
Yeah, down here, literally, Miami is one of the bigger places for the World Cup.
Now, will the ICE people be outside the stadium there, just hauling people off into buses and sending them to El Salvador? What's going to happen with that?
I'm hoping in the next year things change a little bit. If not, yes, that would be. You would think they would be living their best life. ICE agents literally at these events. There's a lot of immigrants at these events. Yes.
You got tickets?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly.
Let me see your birth certificate while we're at it. Well, will they be checking birth certificates at the gate? That'll be an interesting one. But that's a political topic that we don't want to dive too deeply into here because there are other matters of concern regarding this United States hosting of the World Cup. Especially, what good does it do to host a cup if your team sucks, Lubie? They lose 4-0 to Switzerland. I believe this was yesterday. 4-0 without this. This seems impossible, Lubie. Without getting a single shot on goal.
They didn't get a shot the whole. I haven't followed them in a while, but when you see people freak out about it, you're like, okay, I guess they played bad versus a crappy team.
They've lost 4 straight. They have lost 7 straight to European teams, and they get blanked. I guess that was the final 4-0. I know it might have been the halftime score, but they didn't have a single shot. How is it possible? The net is the size of the Grand Canyon.
It is.
You cannot miss this net. You at least have to put a dribbler that goes to the goaltender, no? How do you not have a single shot on net? They literally could have put their goaltender and sat him down on a piano in the lounge, and they would have had the same exact total of goals. The United States team, 0.0. Not a single shot that was on track. Just unbelievable. And here we are. On the threshold now. Who's the guy? Is it Pulisic? What's the kid's name?
Yeah, Christian Pulisic.
Pulisic, yeah. Now, he's not playing right now. they're resting him, or he's got other commitments. And I guess there would be other players on the roster that might be of significance that aren't playing with this current lineup of players. But absolutely awful. I mean, atrocious. Now, how is this possible, though? Because we've been looking at soccer for a long time. I will never forget this. I've mentioned this conversation. It stuck with me when I was a waiter at the Seawain Country Club in Hewlett Harbor, Long Island. I took a job there for a week. I had run out of cash, and I just needed to get some money together so I could keep going to Roosevelt Raceway at night and sustain myself through the summer. I was home from college, I guess. And so I'm at the Seawain Country Club. And oh, wow, look at that. Dave Hyde is involved here already? I didn't realize that, Lubie. Oh, very good. All right, let's bring him on. This is even better than me giving my soccer recap story.
Yeah, I love it, but I'd rather hide.
Yeah, let's get somebody that actually has something to say on the show here. We welcome from the Sun Sentinel, which I'm now being bombarded by email messages from the Sun Sentinel. I don't know what I clicked on to trigger this or ignite this, but I now get 20 emails a day from the Sun Sentinel. Still looking for that buck for the 6 months. And the reason I would do it, the compelling reason I would do it, and I think I'm just going to throw a buck in the ocean today and commemorate the commitment that we once had to the Sun Sentinel, because Dave Hyde would be worth every penny of that dollar to read his columns. David, how are you, my friend?
I'll bring over a cup of coffee the first day that you read the Sun Sentinel, just so you can have coffee and a good read, So, yeah.
Believe me, I'm a big fan of newspapers. It was with great reluctance, I canceled my New York Post subscription after 20 years. At one time, I was getting the Herald, the Sun Sentinel, and the Post all delivered to my driveway. And I couldn't wait to get my hands on them. I'm still a big fan of newspaper sports sections, even though they've been greatly diminished, much like, unfortunately, our former trade being in AM radio and sports radio. I mean, that's all but done. There are hardly any shows anymore, hardly any stations. But it doesn't diminish what you are doing and your contribution, which we keep up with, and we're able to keep pace with it because Jim Sarney sends us all of your articles, which I get to read the lead. You write great leads, and then the paywall comes up. And that's it.
I love Jim. Way to go, Jim. Good for him.
Comes to you out, yes.
Oh, he's your biggest fan. There's no doubt about it. All right, what do you make of it? Let's zero in on the series here. Never mind this soccer rant. I was going to say that a guy told me about 50 years ago to learn soccer if I wanted to be a sportscaster. He probably was right, but apparently the American players haven't learned how to play the game in those 50 years because we still stink at the sport. But hockey, which you would have never thought would have caught on in South Florida, as the joke used to go when the team was being talked about in its infant stages of discussions. The only ice anybody knows about here is at the bottom of a glass. But that has changed. What are your thoughts so far on the series? Because this Game 3 was a dramatic departure from what we saw from the Panthers in the first couple of games in terms of the dominance actually being reflected on the scoreboard.
Yeah, the first two games were, belong in a museum. They were beautiful hockey. And then you saw the dark side of hockey at the end of Game 3 when Edmonton was just so frustrated by the Panthers. They just decided, well, the only thing we can do is fight. And so they started fighting. But really, what will matter is the first period and a half of Game 3, where the Panthers, like you said, just controlled play. I mean, they're up 5-1. 4-1 through two periods, 5-1 early in the third, and I don't know if they solved a code for the series, but they sure did in Game 3, and that was the first real separation you've seen between the two teams. And so the question heading into Game 4 is, does that continue, or probably not that much of a separation, but does Edmonton, get back to playing a better game?
Well, Draisaitl, he had his point streak snapped. I think it's 7. Draisaitl had 8. McDavid had 7, and they do nothing in this game.
Yeah, Draisaitl didn't even have a shot. Draisaitl didn't have a shot. That's stunning.
Pretty amazing. So I mean, maybe you can put it into context. I don't want to crown them champions yet, but certainly seem to be well on their way. Let's put the big, my favorite sports word, which is right at the top of the sports eye chart, IF. Should the Panthers go on and win this thing, I mean, can we put in context what it means in terms of overall achievement as compared to any other franchise that's been here in town?
Yeah, well, it's only been this will be 3 times in the finals, 2 titles, and that will match what the 70, the Dolphins did back in their day, and long ago, 70, the perfect season, that era. And with the Heat's big 3, they went to the 4 straight, but the first 3 years they lost the first one and won the next 2. So are we on the verge of talking dynasty? Where are we at? I mean, this is and the interesting thing, if you want to look ahead, the Panthers have $19 million. They're $19 million to spend this offseason, which is ranked 16th in the league. As far as money to spend, right in the middle. You would think with what they're doing and third year in, they'd be right up against the salary cap, have nobody to spend, be losing, Sam Bennett and Aaron Ekblad and Brad Marchand are free agents, and so it'll be interesting to see if they can bring all those guys back, or certainly a couple of them, and how they go about next year. But to your point, I don't think this series is over. It all swings every game. You know how it is. If Edmund comes out and wins Thursday night, it'll be, they're back in control of the series. So I mean, there are wild swings of conversation in series like this.
It would take a dramatic turnaround, though. I mean, from what we saw in Game 3, for Edmonton to muscle it up and be competitive in Game 4. We have seen, and Lubie's alluded to this, every now and then, though, the Panthers have been known to throw in a sleeper.
Let's remember the Panthers were up 3-0 last year, and Edmund came back and tied it 3-3, and went to Game 7. The Panthers won 2-1. So again, the Panthers look like they found something last game. Now, whether it carries over into Game 4, we'll have to see.
All right, what's your favorite part of this story? And now, besides being able to travel to Edmonton and enjoy the atmosphere there, and
everybody should go to Edmonton once in their life, and I've been 3 times in the past year. So,
geez.
It's not exactly. And this is the sports writer's lament. Okay, when the Heat's big 3 went to the championship series, look at their opponents. So I got to spend a week in Oklahoma City, twice a week in San Antonio, and a week in Dallas. And the next 4 years, the Western champion was Golden State. So you'd spend a week in San Francisco all those years. And now I spend it in the Youngstown of Canada, and I spend it in Edmonton.
Did you find anything to do? I mean, obviously that there would be other members of the press that were out there that you probably are familiar with. But what do you do? And have you mentioned to the wife yet, Mrs. Hyde? Hey, you know what? We ought to consider a move.
It's a beautiful river you can walk along, and that's about. Other than that, last year when I was there, I went to the hotel desk and I asked what's something to do, and the 3 of them converged and huddled and talked and came back and said we should suggest going to the mall.
Oh Jesus!
No. That was the thing in Minnesota and Minneapolis.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Super Bowl. That was a big thing. In fact, we were in the mall. That's where they headquartered everything because it's the only place that anybody would ever venture out to go to. All right. I mean, did you in the post game? I mean, what did you sense? It was a bloodbath. Are you thinking everybody just sort of starts fresh in this Game 4 coming up tomorrow night, or are we going to see some of this bad blood spill over?
No, it'll start all over again. It'll start fresh. That was just end the game. That's hockey. It's senseless to me, but it's sort of the dark side of hockey where let's fight because we have nothing else to do. But no, the games are too important right now to. It'll be interesting to see again. Where the Panthers with their 4 really good lines, 3 really good lines, and then a good 4th line for what it does, size and wearing opponents down over a series. Where Edmonton stands on that, because they got 2 great players and they're deeper this year, but they're not as deep as the Panthers, and so. It's like Edmonton really needed this day off to regroup, I think. They're 2 days off, to regroup, which gets to the bizarre scheduling of the NHL and really their desire to stay away from the NBA Finals. The NBA Final game's tonight. And normally when you go to a place like when the playoffs moved here, the Panthers would have played Monday night and Wednesday night. Games 3 and 4, but they put 2 days off here to stay away from the NBA Finals. So they play Thursday night. Then they have a 1-day transcontinental travel, forever travel. You can get to Rome and Stockholm quicker than Edmonton. And then they play Saturday night. So it's just some strange scheduling for these finals.
So what's interesting to me about it is, through the first 2 games, their stars shined, and the Panthers were in it. The Panthers could have been up 2-0, or they could have been down 0-2, so 1-1 was about right. But their stars really hadn't done much. And then in Game 3, you saw the role sort of reverse, where Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, Reinhart were highly involved. Their 2 guys don't do anything. But what's funny is, even now, their pretty much best all-around player still hasn't done anything. But that's the funny thing about this series is Barkov, who's widely regarded around the NHL as two-way for the Panthers, as good as any forward in hockey. He still doesn't have a point in this series. So that's the funny thing to me is, as much as they exploded, there's still room for them to get better. And that's what's interesting about the Panthers. And that's what going into the series, it was like, look, you can't just dispatch the Oilers because they do have arguably the 2 best players in the sport. And they do at times play together on the same line. And they do play really well together. But after that, it feels like the next 6 or 7 guys are all Panthers. And it's not even like a stretch. And it just felt like at some point, if they could get together, they'd be scary. You guys have alluded to it. I wonder how much the Oilers can. We saw it in that series. Yes, when the Panthers sort of lay off the gas, because it's probably hard to play like they played in Game 3 every game, all game. But it seems like they keep coming. And what do you say about Barkov, who literally is a guy a lot of the time that's the straw that stirs the drink, but we haven't really seen him on the scoreboard at all this series.
Yeah, I agree that last game Verhaeghe scored, Reinhart scored, and it was important to get more production than really Bennett and Marchand have been the horses for a while. And as far as Barkov, I agree completely. There's room for him to offensively to do it, but look at what McDavid at games in Florida over the past 2 finals now. This, obviously 1 game this finals, 4 games last year. It doesn't have a goal.
Jeez.
And who's that? The primary source there that starts with Barkov and Forsling on defense and Ekblad. But Barkov is at home the home team has the final line goes out. They get to match whoever they want to, and the Panthers want to match Barkov against McDavid. So I agree what you're saying, that Barkov, there's definitely room for him offensively to show who he is and impact the series. But you got to also look at what he's done defensively to McDavid. And it's easy to see in the home games because that's where the Panthers can match him up. And if he can shut down McDavid or help shut down McDavid, be part of the layers that shut down McDavid, and then they would they'll let the other guys be the offensive forces.
A lot of hockey success seems to be measured in intangibles also, because I'm watching, I guess, between periods, between the second and the third period, and they have a highlight reel of all the great dirty work that Barkov was doing. And so even though you don't have the usual barometers there, goals and assists, it seemed like they were crediting Barkov, much like you are, Dave, with being very instrumental in what success the Panthers were having. All right. As you look at this thing overall, I keep thinking to myself, how does Toronto, or one of these desperate franchises that have been looking to recapture their identity or justify their lofty place in NHL history, Montreal, how do they not wave zillions of dollars at Bill Zito? And in your opinion, where does he rank? I mean, you would have to say we've had some good ones here over the years, and a lot of guys long term that people had great respect for. But where does he rank among South Florida sports executives at this point?
He's right up there with Pat Riley,
Yeah.
Dave Dombrowski, who was really built 2 title teams in some regard. And Zito, look, the Panthers changed when he walked in the door.
Yep.
And his moves have been gold. You can go down the roster, and when we've done it, Reinhardt, Bennett, seen something in guys like that, Nico Mikkola, bunch of guys he's seen talent in that their own teams didn't see. And that's the mark of greatness in the front office. When you see something that the team that lives with the guy doesn't see, and they bring him here. Forsling, they got off the scrap heap. His first draft was draft Anton Lundell. You just go down the list. But no matter the sport, it starts there in that office. The guy picking the players, and then you branch out and you go, okay. And this sounds sacrilegious in South Florida. I can't even believe I'm saying it. But imagine Paul Maurice. Now, this is another Zito find. He hires him, but Paul Maurice comes in. He has this talent, and it needs molding. And he molds it into this championship run. Who's that sound like? Who else came into town and had a lot of talent that hadn't been molded into winners, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this roster is stacked with great players. And that's Shula back in '70 when he came to I can't believe I'm saying that.
No, that was a good one. I was thinking Shula was the answer.
Yeah. So when you start stacking up what the Panthers are doing and put it in some type of historical context, it's right up there with all the great runs South Florida's ever had.
Wow, I can hear John Facenda in my head as you were talking about that. John Shula and the Miami Dolphins, followed by Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers. You wouldn't normally think that, especially early on when they hired Maurice, and you thought, what are they doing with this guy? He's losing his coach in NHL history. It figures that this is the guy they think is going to guide them into greatness in the future. And you would have never thought that just a few short years later you'd be making a Shula comparison and you wouldn't get laughed at. But very appropriate, Dave Hyde. All right, what do you think? I mean,
he's a better quote than Shula too. I can say that because I love Shula.
Well, and he also, I mean, these in-game interviews he does, is the guy as unflappable as he appears to be? Nothing seems to bother him. He's down 2-0. Pucks are flying by his face as the reporter comes in there and goes, Paul, what do you think you're going to do differently in the second period here? and he comes back with like jokes. He's amazing. I love this guy. He seems to be absolutely unfazed by what's going on.
Yeah, and one of the great things, and I've asked him this, is here he is in his late 50s. He's been a coach for 3 decades in the NHL now, and he gets this team. All his ideas of what it takes to win and how to build a team, they're all formulated. And now, nearing the end of his career in some level, he gets this great material to work with, and that material he hasn't had his whole career. And I asked him about it. He said this is the best team he's ever had. Of course, I mean they've been to 3 straight finals. He didn't have anything close to that.
Yeah,
he took one team to the final. So he knows he knows what he wants to do. All his ideas are, and now he's got the material. So he knows how to act. He knows how to be a head coach, how to be funny when it's time to be funny and be serious. And as he says, sometimes when he's been screaming at the team, he is asked what he was trying to do, and he says, "I just thought they needed a little profanity." So he knows how to be a head coach.
Well, and if they can stretch this series with the scheduling into July, Dave, that will spare you having to go to any Marlins games in the interim as you await the opening of training camp for the Dolphins, where speculation will run wild as to what kind of team they're going to have. Dave, great stuff. Always a pleasure. We do appreciate Sarney. I mean, it's one of the few texts that I actually read that Sarney sends us. He sends us a lot of minutia. I don't know if he was involved in that. Yeah. He's a great American. We love him, but every now and then you're looking at something he sends us, and we go, "Well, this guy's got too much time on his hands." But very worthwhile.
That's what you'll be doing. You'll be with that metal detector on the beach and listening to the radio.
I already am. That's I'll listen to a ball game on an AM transistor and some headsets. Dave, always a pleasure, my friend. Keep up the great work, and thanks so much for taking time to join us here on the show today.
All right, Defo. Talk to you later.
Thanks. All right, Dave Hyatt, ladies and gentlemen. That has to be a godsend, no, for any newspaper reporter that's going to do something on a daily basis. The fact that this is going on, as opposed to, although there was a dramatic victory for the Marlins yesterday. They staved off the embarrassment of losing a 3-0 lead late.
Who?
Yeah,
Who?
exactly.
Oh, you're not following baseball, Tony? You're a big baseball guy.
I'm just kidding.
Sandy Alcantara became a very viable trade bait again.
Last 2 games, he's pitched well.
Good outings here. There's no way that he makes it past the All-Star break. I mean, that's what they've been hoping for the last several months, ever since he went in for the Tommy John. All right, Tony Segreto is going to join us here. We're going to go old school with Tony Segreto, and that's coming up right around the corner, as we'll be back with Tony and more, brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants in a moment. Now that. The time. It's 8:38.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently realized.
What we gonna do is go back, way back into time.
We are now kicking it old school with the one and only Tony Segreto, brought to you by Texas Roadhouse.
Tell me, doctor.
All right, welcome back to the show. We got Tony Segreto here, and it looks to me like you're still in South Florida, Tony. What's going on?
I am leaving the moment this show ends.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
It's awesome. What, hopping in a car? How are you going about this?
Hopping in the car, and I'm going to Lake City, Florida.
Okay.
We avoided Gainesville.
Okay.
Yeah. Where's Lake City exactly?
It's about,
between games. It's like right when you get on I-10. Parts of it are before I-10 and parts of it are after I-10. It's about a little over an hour east. Sorry, a little over an hour east of Tallahassee.
East of Tallahassee.
Oh, wow. It's way out there.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to they call it Atlanta, but it's not Atlanta for the weekend, and then straight up north. So I got a full plate planned.
I love that he drives by himself still.
Yeah. Now, is
Drive
the wife going to
himself.
be with you on this ride? Because aren't you going to like an engagement thing or a wedding or something?
Yeah, he's saying it out loud, but now I guess we're getting quiet.
This is a secret?
It's supposed to be. His son's proposing, but Tony's telling the world because he's so proud.
The worst kept secret
It's like my pregnancy. Yeah, exactly. We were alluding to it
in
from
American history. What are you talking about?
Oh God, but yeah. So I should be in Vermont a week from today.
All right. Well, you won't be missing anything down here because the weather's starting to get very
Yeah, it's
bizarre.
rough.
Hot as hell, and intermittent rain pops up at any time. It's sunny out, and all of a sudden it's pouring. So we're immersed in summertime, and it would be the summertime blues if not for this Panther story.
Oh my God, they're just amazing. Hey Ed, how are you
Oh, we got
doing?
Ed Garcia too.
Good morning. How you guys doing this morning?
Doing
morning.
great. How are you, my friend?
Awesome.
Got my
I-
Texas Roadhouse hat.
Oh, you're looking good, man. That's sharp.
I have a Texas Roadhouse question, actually, and this keeps popping up on my Facebook feed. Is this in any way legitimate? It says if your birthday's in July, Texas Roadhouse wants to give you a $500 gift card or something. Now, I would have thought maybe this was legit, except that then I saw it with another restaurant associated with it. I mean, how difficult is it with all the stuff that goes on online to protect the good name of the restaurant? Because I don't know, it seemed a little out of bounds that that this offer would be being made to anybody who was born in July. I mean, you'd go broke if you honored that.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you a fun fact. We get over 1 million cyber attacks a day.
No,
A day.
a day.
And
Each restaurant or total?
As a
as a company.
yeah, 1 million.
So you should see our IT department. It is a whole floor of this building. I mean, it looks like you're in NORAD or whatever. It's very, very impressive what they got going on there, because I mean, it literally is a full-time job of what happens. But you know, it's very unfortunate because we deal with it quite a bit, especially some of the senior citizens, you know, that get these offers. And it's really, there's a lot of fake, hey, you've worked really hard this last month. We're going to treat you with a free dinner at Texas Roadhouse. Fill out this information. And by the way, give us your credit card.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's a lot of that. So anytime you see something funky like that, you know, we just do ask our guests to report it. But it's very, very unfortunate. You know, there's just a lot of people out there just trying to get your information. So
Yeah, it seemed a bit much. I mean, $500 for everybody that's birthday in July.
You'll buy out Roadhouse.
Literally, it's
crazy.
his birthday.
Yeah.
You could throw like a wedding for $500.
A wedding at Texas Roadhouse. Yes, that's a
All
good.
right, let's try and get a little context. We just heard from Dave Hyde, outstanding columnist, Sun Sentinel, one of the best ever to do it, and we've been very fortunate to have him here in South Florida for what seems like well over 30 years.
Yes,
Tony.
he is.
And he alluded to, and this is kind of interesting because I know this was your man, the great Don Shula, and he was comparing what Paul Maurice has done with the Panthers to what Don Shula had done with the early 70s Miami Dolphins, coming in, molding what was a decent talent base and
Just had to
getting
be
them to perform at a top level, and then taking them to 3 straight championship rounds and winning 2 if the Panthers go on to win this one, which they'd have the 2-1 advantage. I don't know, Tony, is that a fair comparison? And
Absolutely.
yeah.
You hate to say it, but absolutely. You know, Shula would be the first one to admit this man is as real and legit as possible. He is the full package, and you got to give him his just due.
Oh, Don, what do you think, Ed? I mean, we've seen not that many great things, but some real moments of greatness here in South Florida throughout its history, right? Had the early 70s Dolphins. Unfortunately, they haven't been the same since. We had the 4 championship appearances, 2 wins by the Miami Heat. We carved out 6 years apart 2 World Series with a franchise that, as we see, doesn't seem to really give a flying one about doing much of anything now. And now we have this, where, and it comes from a franchise that looked like it was dead in the water. So What do you think among the accomplishments we've seen sporting wise in this town, in this area? Where does this rank?
I felt being in Florida now since pretty much '04. I used to share with a lot of friends that, when you go to a sporting event, whether it was baseball, football, whatever the situation may be, there's a pretty good chance that 50% of the fans were going to be from the opposing team because Florida's just such a transient state. Yes, there's a lot of locals, but, a lot of people came in. And I think what the Panthers have done is built a culture of not just winning, but a culture of their team and their people and being part of the community, which has driven it. And I'll share this. I mentioned last week the girls are in town. And so we bought $15 tickets to the watch party to go watch the Panthers.
Oh, nice.
I'm telling you, you would have thought it was a live game. The energy was electric in there. I mean, any push, any fight, whatever it was, people were on their feet. And, that just says a lot of what they've done that, hey, people take time out of their day. Because I question, it's, myself, it's like, hey, it's a 45-minute ride down all the way to the arena. But the kids are still talking about it today. They're like, that was so much fun. And, got to enjoy, the ice was cold. And here was a pretty cool part. My wife really enjoyed it. I was just watching, the big scoreboard, but on the ice, they had the players like a hologram. It was a circle. They were running down the ice to the thing. Wow. There was a little circle and there's a little black thing, going across. I couldn't watch the game that way. A whole bunch of circles running around. To me, it was a cartoon, but I was just watching the scoreboard and I had a great time.
Ed, you bring out a great point. They've developed a culture.
Yep.
They can't deny.
Right. And that's what it is. And that leadership of bringing everybody together and getting everyone here to drink that Kool-Aid of like, hey, we can do it. We can win. Let's go again. So it was a lot of fun. Kudos to that organization. They did a really awesome job.
Well, it was interesting because it's funny. I grew up in an era where you still got this a little bit in the 90s, but Defo and Tony talk about like 70s, 80s sports teams. Like when you say in the community, it's so funny because that's an expression that I don't know if it still exists. But back in the day, it was just commonplace. Like the players would be shopping at Publix. They would be taking pictures and doing autographs, and it was just assumed. This team is sort of reminiscent of that. Like this group, especially remember the way that they made sure to celebrate that cup with any human that wanted to celebrate. They were all over South Florida every day. It was in 12 places, and they wanted South Florida to experience that cup, not just them. And you've seen them over the years, whether it's Barkov or even Kachuk, who moved right in and took to this community, that they've sort of not only ingratiated themselves, but like made the community their community. And it goes to show you the way that South Florida is. It's not as loud as 96. It's not as loud as some of the Canes championships in the 80s, but if you go around, you are seeing people sort of get swept up in this in a way that we haven't in a long time in South Florida sports.
I work out with a guy that just absolutely is glued to the TV for every Panthers game. He talks about it like a religion. And you know what? He is a culture. He's of the culture
Product of the culture. Yep.
that doesn't follow hockey.
Interesting.
And he's sold.
I felt it Monday night in our sales. We were down over 30%. Yeah. Every single night, the 12 locations send me a little recap, and every single one of them was like, it was so slow. But which is definitely a bummer for me, but I was super excited because the game was off the hook. I mean, it was just to watch that walloping was a great time.
Speaking of the restaurants, Ed, how many restaurants now seat outside?
We all have a little bit. Most of them have a little bit of outside seating. Miramar has the most. That has that ginormous patio on the water. And, we're working real hard to figure out how to keep it a little bit cooler here in these next few months. But there's ever since COVID, that is definitely a conscious piece as we build them too, of having, an area outside to, if you wanted to have some dinner or, enjoy an appetizer out there that you can.
Well,
But,
you guys are airing the games, right? And because to
100%.
me, I know you're alluding to people, and we're seeing it. People are staying at home, they're hunkering together. But to me, if you're going to go out somewhere and watch, like you guys have tons of TVs, air conditioned, which as you're talking about right now, we all could use that. And you guys have food for everyone, the entire family.
And they got the bread.
As well as those family packs, which work out really great. So it's just a lot less stress. You can get these amazing, family meals for 4 to 6 people, bring it home, and it's just so much less to clean up. And, you can enjoy a great, basically home cooked meal.
It's amazing. It's amazing what you do, Ed.
Oh, I'm blessed with a great people.
Hey, speaking of great people, camp started.
Oh, football.
We used to cover this thing like it was the second coming. Right, Jeff? Every week. And now they're out there. What do you think of the Dolphins' chances?
Oh, Jesus.
I think it's pretty good, kind of coming off the Panthers. I'm going to use just the same word as the culture piece. Okay. I feel there's a great following. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's people that they just bleed Dolphin 100%. But I think the organization has to really get some buy-in from some of the players. Some of the things of like, hey, I want to get traded or go somewhere else. That does nothing but just damage inside the 4 walls. And I think they get that fixed. They got a great opportunity. Because it's about heart, there's talent for sure. I mean, we pay for it, right? I mean, I know there's a salary cap and there's a lot of organizations out there paying it, but it's just getting that buy-in to give in that 100% every day. So
every day, they can't seem to get over that hump.
A lot of people seeing them going backwards this year. Which is hard to imagine because they had this heavy investment there. They were all in, and they go 8 and 9, which is pretty pathetic if you think about it. Not a lot of reason for optimism, although usually that surfaces with any club at this point in time before they get to training camp. But it hasn't really been the case with Miami. It's hard to know what's real anymore, just like you were talking about with the Texas Roadhouse offer.
It is. It's hard to know what's real. It's hard.
I was going to say that, I'm seeing these artificial intelligence generated things where you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers standing up and he's absolutely condemning the Pittsburgh Steelers, in a speech. And there's a lot of cursing and swearing, and he's outing everybody. And I saw one with Mike McDaniel, and I don't know if it was real or not, where he was talking about Jalen Ramsey, who I guess are they trading Jalen Ramsey? What's going on with that?
Traded. He wants to be traded, and they're okay with trading him, supposedly.
Okay, and he's talking about Jalen Ramsey, and I couldn't tell if this was one of those AI things or if he was really just saying, "Hey, we don't need this clown," which. Would be if that's the stance they're taking, then that certainly would not be a good omen for team chemistry going into the season. But I couldn't tell if it was a real speech by McDaniel or not because it sounded like something he actually would say.
You can't tell anymore what's real and what's not real.
Yeah. No,
the AI stuff is pretty incredible. It's on another level.
I love it.
We could be fake.
Yeah.
The four of us could be fake.
Except for Lubie. No one can replicate Lubie.
Lubie is genuine. All right. Now, are your Wolverines being picked on? What's going on with that? Seems to me the NCAA regulating anything at this point is a bit farcical. We do have a new law that was instituted where teams or colleges can pay players directly. I don't know. Do you understand the impact of that, Ed? Because I don't know, Tony, you're involved in this with the board of directors there in Miami. What does this all mean?
Go ahead, Ed.
I was going to say, as far as the allowing that, I saw that come out on Friday. I think really the biggest impact are going to be on the fans in a sense of, when you go to enjoy the sporting events and things like that, where the university used to keep, majority of the funds, now they have to figure out how to divvy up. And, no one on here likes to give away their money. So it's got to come from somewhere. And, so I think it's just going to come from, what they sell at the venues, the uniform sales, as well as, ticket pricing. As far as the impact, I mean, every player is going to get paid a little bit more. Hey, that's, their name, image, and likeness is very important and brings a lot. I just hope, I'm bringing up that C word again. It doesn't ruin the culture. That's one of the best things that I love about college sports is that when they weren't getting paid, they were playing it for the game. And, I think the teams that are going to win, this fall and the future falls are going to be the ones that can maintain that culture of, hey, we're not just doing this for the money. We're doing it, we're doing it for the school. We're doing it for this logo.
Never thought I'd see the day when there was no regulation, though, in college sports. I mean, who's going to regulate this, Tony? Who's overseeing this?
That's the question. Who is going to regulate it? And Saban's the guy that's got to be the mind of reason, because he is really the lone wolf in this. He stands tall, and he's got to run an organization that will listen. And he has to form it, but he's got to get asked.
Yeah,
he liked it a lot better when he could pay them without anybody knowing.
Yes, indeed. He liked it a lot better when he could pay him and no one knew it.
You mean all those 320-pound linemen that can run a 4.40 weren't just going there?
4.340. What are you talking about? 4.3.
The education they were going to get at Alabama, which certainly would rank up there with any of the major institutions around the country. I don't know. I don't see Saban getting back involved in this.
He's openly said he doesn't want to do it. I don't know. Look, we'll see. They need a governing body. It's not going to be the NCAA. Greg Sankey seems to be leading charges, so we'll see if the SEC and the Big Ten. I mean, those are the two powerhouse conferences. At some point, they're going to want to rein things in. They keep doing things, and this, I guess, was Congress involved, that make it more confusing. Like, nothing that's coming out makes it easier to understand. Like, it just feels like it's more money with less control, which doesn't seem like the brightest thing. And one day there's going to be a governing body. I just don't know who it is, and I don't know when it'll be.
These kids are going to make more money as a college athlete. They could retire.
Oh, no, a lot of them are.
Yeah. Well, look at your $1 million baby there, that pitcher from Texas Tech. She's got another $1 million coming, even though she got shelled in the championship game, which came as, I would imagine, a bit of a surprise. And then I kept thinking, what the other young ladies on the team seem to really like her, but is that because she's doling out some of this cash? Because I can't imagine it. I mean, who else is getting paid on that team? That was the question. And you would have to think that that's going to cause some trouble also, where you have one guy making $5 million and somebody who may be the second best player on the team, and he's getting, very little by comparison. All right, so Ed, I shouldn't send my information out for that $500 offer. I have a birthday.
Absolutely not.
No,
he said,
you can always reach out to me and I'll get you a dinner, so don't worry.
Man needs to eat, that's for sure. And Texas Roadhouse would be the place. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Ed Garcia and Tony Segreto, Old School with Tony Segreto. Mike Lubitz, of course, going to be out and about.
Later, Mr. Tony.
We'll be joining you again tomorrow when we have the trivia challenge. Is Dave around tomorrow?
Yes, Gurgles is in. We will have a trivia challenge tomorrow morning.
Okay, so that sounds good. The professor coming up on Friday. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. For Mike Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. We will see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
Oh, and by the way, I'm hoping this works out. We struck out yesterday. We tried to get Jim Larinaga on a video stream. That's a second. It's actually the third attempt. He said he had worked out his computer issues and was ready to join us yesterday about 9:30 for conversations. Would have been great. And we weren't able to make the connection. And today we're going to experiment because we're sending the signal out to Puerto Rico, where my friend Louis DeCubis,
nice,
most influential guys in boxing, probably responsible for certainly all of the Cuban fighters that came to prominence around the world after they managed to make their exit from Cuba. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if it's easier to get that accomplished now than it was, say, 15, 20 years ago when they really had to basically smuggle these guys out of there and they would end up in Germany, have a couple of fights there, and then come to the States. But Louis has more or less been responsible for almost every high-profile Cuban boxer that's come to prominence. Arislandi Lara, Joel Casamayor, Hurtado, Big King Kong Ortiz, and also was originally responsible, I think, for bringing Roberto Duran to prominence. So,
Oh, wow.
hugely influential guy, still involved very heavily in boxing promotion. He has Cuban fighter David Morrell, who had his first loss against Benavidez. And we'll ask him about some of the upcoming fights and all of the other things that are going on in boxing, including Canelo and Crawford. That's coming up at hopefully 10 o'clock right here on Bleacher Brothers. So watch for that. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
It's 9:01.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.